Hello and welcome to BookTrib After Dark. We are so delighted to have New York Times and USA Today best-selling author Lorelei James with us this evening. Her latest book is Roped In, a Blacktop Cowboys Novella, which is part of the 1001 Dark Knight series. Lorelei, as you may or may not know, also writes award-winning mysteries under Laurie Armstrong. But now everybody knows that. And is the author of contemporary erotic Western romances set in the modern-day Wild West, as well as contemporary erotic romances. Lorelei's books have been nominated and won the Romantic Times Reviewer's Choice Award, as well as the CAPA Award, and she lives in, where else, western South Dakota with her family, and a whole lot of closet full of cowgirl boots. Before we begin, I want to mention that we'll be giving away a mystery bag of Lorelei's favorite things, so be sure to sign up at BookTrib and enter to win at the end of the chat. And now, it is my pleasure to welcome Lorelei James to BookTrib's After Dark. Lorelei, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I will admit it's a little weird to be interviewed in my bedroom, but I'm here. I have real clothes on.
I think it's a perfect setting for you, Lorelei.
This is actually where I write.
And that's it.
So.
I'll bet. How perfect. I would like to ask you the first question, if you don't mind. Here it is. How do you come up with all those fascinating characters and the diversity of surroundings? They're wonderful. It's the wide open spaces of probably the most beautiful part of the United States.
Okay. I like cowboys. I like where I live, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about those type of people. So I sort of took it upon myself to say, I'm going to, different areas of the Western world. I'm going to talk about ranchers. I'm going to talk about ranchers. I'm going to talk about cowboys. I'm going to talk about rodeo cowboys. I'm going to try to take all of those different people that make the West what it is even today and, turn it on its head and give it my own kind of spin with a little bit of sex in it.
That's great. And Lorelei, I'm noticing that you and I wear the same kind of glasses. Do you think if I keep wearing these glasses, I'll be able to write these fabulous novellas like you do?
Absolutely.
You don't have to answer that.
Absolutely.
I call them my power glasses.
That's what I call mine.
All right. Twins. Anyway, Vanessa has the next question. It was going to be the first, but I took her slot. And she says, can you tell us a little bit about Roped In, a Blacktop Cowboys novella?
Roped In is a novella, so it's much shorter than my regular books. And the main male character, Sutton Grant, was in Turn and Burn, and he was kind of the sounding board for my main female character. And he really intrigued me because I didn't really know a lot about him. So in my mind, that kind of meant I didn't have enough story to tell an entire book from his point of view. And so when this project came up, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to get to tell Sutton's story because, there's not enough there for a full book. And so I really wondered who I was going to pair him with as far as, a woman. And it ended up being a horse trainer that he had bought his horse from her family. And so she sort of hates him because she didn't want him to buy the horse. And so she's kind of got it in for him, and he tricks her and shows up, at a rodeo where she's working, and now she thinks this is a perfect opportunity to get back at her boyfriend who dumped her by pretending to be in a relationship with him. So.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Lynn would like to know, so would I, by the way, with all those cowgirl boots, do you ride horses or do you just have a love for rodeo and stables?
I am all cowgirl boots, no horses. No cattle, no cowboys, just a serious love of it.
Yeah. How about the two-step? I know they call it the Texas two-step. Do you have a South Dakota two-step?
Yes, it's a little different. You have to spin a different direction.
I'm going to let that go. Oh, my goodness. Caitlin wants to know, how often do you try to connect with your readers on social media sites such as Facebook and Twitter? That's a good question since we're all about social media nowadays.
I try to, I have a blog that I post on a couple of times a week, and that goes directly to my Facebook and to my Twitter. And I do go on Facebook and try to post something every day. I have groups that are dedicated to each one of the individual series. So, if you want to talk about the Rough Riders or Blacktop Cowboys, there are Facebook groups. And I tend to be a little bit more active in those because there are specific questions about the series and, availability of the books. And I'm on Twitter, probably more now than I have been in the past, but it's all a balancing act when you have books that are due. And I have to, figure out, hey, I can't spend hours on Facebook. I need to spend hours in front of my computer working on my book.
Do you actually answer your own Twitters?
I do.
That's great.
Yeah, nobody tweets for me. Nobody does my Facebook. It's all me. So it's sort of, hit and miss. And I also answer all my own email, and I'm horribly, horribly behind on that right now. I'll just admit it.
But I think that your fans that are listening and viewing this conversation that we're having tonight, once they know that it's really you answering them, I think they're going to give you a little rope, not because you live in South Dakota,
nice one.
but to know that you take the time to talk to your your fans. And I think that even a fan that doesn't write or has never written a book or a novel or a novella knows the time and dedication it takes to be able to sit down and concentrate, and especially when you're into that chapter and you don't want to lose any the train of thought. So it's good to know that you're one of the authors that really does write back when you have time. So we'll all remember that. And we'll try not to tweet too much. Kathy would like to know, Roped In is part of the Blacktop Cowboys series. How many books / novellas can we expect from this series?
Well, right now I'm contracted for 2 more books, full-length books with NAL, and the next one is tentatively titled Wrapped and Strapped, and that will be out in September of next year. And then I have another full-length book that will be out in September of 2016, and that one does not have a title. But that's what I'm contracted for right now. My next installment in the 1001 Dark Nights will also be a Blacktop Cowboys novella. And that's out in July, I think, next year.
So does the title ever change from, say, now until it's ready to go to press? Will that title change, or is that locked in?
It's not necessarily locked in. I sort of have to argue for the titles. My last full-length Blacktop Cowboys book is called Hillbilly Rockstar.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that title so much. And my editor's just like, I hate that title. You have to come up with something different. And I couldn't. I could not come up with something different. And so when I was in New York, I was having lunch with her boss. And I mentioned to her that, I really love this title. And she said, Carrie, that's a great title. Why don't you like it? So I ended up getting the title that I wanted. But sometimes it's a little bit of a fight for it.
But you won, and the editor liked it. The editor's boss liked it. How long does it usually take you to write from chapter 1 right through to the end?
Depends on how much time I give myself. If I've got 6 to 8 weeks, that's what it'll take me. And so that's what it's been averaging between 2 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm. Maria would like.
Obviously, novellas are shorter. So
they're shorter, but still, yeah. What about any of the history that goes into it? Do you have to do a lot of research?
I do, and I try to, if the research isn't absolutely imperative to the plot right at that moment, I try to leave my research all in a big chunk. So when I sit down to do the research, I've got all of the materials there, because a lot of times I need to order the books, because I don't rely on everything online. You have to actually have facts. Mm-hmm. And so that type of stuff, if it's not imperative to the plot at that moment, then I try to put it all toward the middle of the book and kind of figure out what else I need to know. But yeah, I do a lot of research.
That makes sense, and I can imagine the research with the locales that you've given your books. Um, Jenna would like to know, what are the odds your Rough Riders characters and Blacktop Cowboys characters would meet or have a crossover story?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I haven't, sometimes I think about it. I have put little tidbits from the Rough Riders into the Blacktop Cowboys, and some of the Blacktop Cowboys stuff is in the Rough Riders book. And so the really savvy readers will pick that stuff up and say, hey, you mentioned, Sky Blue Products, which is a business in the Rough Riders series in your Blacktop Cowboys, and vice versa. So people are paying attention. There's those little things, but as far as pulling entire characters and melding them, probably not, because they're two different publishers. And I could pretty much do whatever I wanted, but the reason I have two series is to keep them separate.
You must love it when your readers can dissect the books from one to the other, and know that they're really reading these and they're really taking in the characters and are making them, like a very familiar.
I have a reader who's been reading me since the beginning, and after she reads my latest book, she breaks it down to the point that I just think maybe she should be writing them, because she does such a great job trying to figure out all the motivations and all that kind of stuff. And it's very cool to get a reader's take on it that way, because a lot of times the stuff that seems very obvious was intentional on my part, but it's not always intentional. So sometimes those coincidences, they seem like they should be there, but it wasn't something that I planned for. And so for people to pick those out, that's always interesting to me.
Well, do you have an editor doing continuity for you, especially in a series? Is there someone there that's just looking for the continuity, like in a film?
No, with NAL, and especially, they use different, the continuity is through me. I have to make sure that I keep track of all that stuff, because we never have the same copy editors, and that's usually where the mistakes are made, is in that portion of it. Is someone will catch and say, oh, well, this person, you just referred to this person, and this is not the same person. And especially in the Rough Rider series, when I have so many C&K names, I would be thinking about one character and type another character's name, and if the person isn't familiar with the series, then they're just going to skip right over that, and that happens. So no, it's all on me if there's mistakes.
Well, you have very loyal fans out there, because the next question also has to do with a combination. And Marie asks, have you ever thought of combining mystery and erotic romance together in a new book?
I have. I do have one book called Running with the Devil, and it's a standalone, and it's an erotic suspense. And it's one of my shorter books, and I always kind of thought that I would end up in the erotic suspense arena, but that book is probably my least selling book. Now that it's got a new cover on it, and we did some other things, it's a little different. But still, that's not a book that people are going, oh my God, I have to read that one. And so I would like to continue with that series, because I think maybe additional books in it would build it, but I don't really see myself going completely that direction, because I'm so picky about romantic suspense. Because I come at it from to be honest, a pure mystery side of it. There's got to be a reason for the sex scene and the violent scene, and if there isn't, then I would rather just write the violent scene, or flip over to the Lorelei side and write the sex scene. So maybe not.
Well, here's one about sex. Beth wants to know, and this is how she says it: your book covers are so sizzling. Are you present for the photo shoots?
No. No, I have a lot of control over the covers, but and especially with the self-publishing stuff, we're doing some new covers, and one of the cover shoots actually is happening in Arizona, and the photographer asked me if I wanted to be present, and I said, first of all, I can't, because I'm under deadline, but I think that I would be more of a hindrance than a help there, because I'm better at the tail end of something, when I see the images and I see what we can do with them, instead of trying to create the images. And the guy who is actually on the cover of Hillbilly Rockstar is now following me on Twitter. Someone saw his picture and said, "Hey, is this so-and-so?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it looks like him." He said, "Yeah, that is me." So that's kind of a weird thing that happens.
Do you have any input with the type of cover you'd like to see to go with the words that you've written? Do you ever give suggestions or tell them, this is the kind of woman I'm looking for, or this is the kind of cowboy I'm looking for, or a very sensual male with long blonde hair, blowing in the wind?
Well,
I think I just described
I have a lot of right. I have a lot of input with the covers, and especially since I worked with Scott Carpenter for my Rough Riders covers for so many years. We did all 16 of the covers together, he and I did. So he sort of knew toward the end that I was going to reject the first 17 covers he sent me. And then we would go from there. So I had, a lot of authors don't have that much control. I had 100% control. I have less so with the Blacktop Cowboys, but I've loved all of the covers, so it's not been an issue.
Mm-hmm. And do the editors or publishers that you're working with take your point of view into consideration if there should be a cover that you really don't like?
Yes. When I initially got the cover for Hillbilly Rockstar, I told them, this is what I want, this is what I want, and I got the cover and I hated it, and it had absolutely everything in it that I wanted. And so I honestly think that a lot of times authors are not the best person to ask for that, because you've got to take into effect, they're looking at marketing, they're looking at everything besides if the character on the cover matches the character in the story. So
besides the Hillbilly,
I trust them.
Besides the Hillbilly Cowboy cover, do you have another favorite cover from your series?
From my Rough Rider series, I love the last cover, Cowboy Take Me Away. I really, really love that cover. And from the Blacktop series, One Night Rodeo, just because it's so pretty, it's purple, and the person that they got on the cover is actually, he's a great representation of the character. So,
do you do a lot of book signings in your area before you go on tour? If you do go on tour with your after books? I
don't go on tour. No, I do. When I have a release, I do book signings here. But since I'm not really doing much with the mystery side anymore, I've done a few Lorelei James here, but most of my book signings are not in my own town. If I do them up elsewhere.
Speaking of your hometown, this is a great segue. Angie would like to know, what are some activities you like to do in your hometown of South Dakota? Now that we know you don't ride horses.
No. I like to go to the rodeos. I like to go to, our friends have a ranch, and I like to go out there and hang out with them because there's so many cool things to do and see. As far as other things, gosh, I'm really pretty boring because I feel like I haven't really done anything. We have a boat, so we go to the lake in the summertime a lot, and that's, probably our real big thing.
Michaela would like to know, what are some of the activities you do to relieve stress? Yoga, running, meditation, but I bet you're going to say going on the boat, because I love being on the water in a boat. There's nothing better.
Well, and we just had to pull our boat out of the lake this last weekend because, it snowed here on Thursday.
I did not know it, but I'm not surprised.
It snowed here Thursday. It's 85 today, and it's supposed to be 90 tomorrow. So we're a little, screwed up with all of my flowers are dead, but, So, yes, we have a gorgeous mountain lake, and it is like every time I go out there, it's almost like a little mini vacation, which is why I don't like to vacation in the summertime, is because being here is a vacation.
Yeah, it's beautiful there.
Yeah.
Well, Tessa wants to know some things about your family. Do you have the support from your family and friends when it comes to writing in the erotic genre? And what was their initial reaction to you releasing a risque book?
I have a lot of support from my family, from my husband, from my daughters. One of my daughters' name is Tessa. Tessa, is that you?
Oh, no.
You're supposed to be at cheerleading practice. So I have a lot of support. My parents are very proud of me, but they've never read any of the erotic books. Even some of their friends have read them and said, "Hey, you should read her books. They're really great." But they just they have sort of an issue with that, which I'm fine with. I think more people were shocked with the mystery side because, I'm not known as a really dark person. I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky, smiley person, and my mysteries are very dark and they're very gritty. And so some people really thought that, wow, that's, I have a dark side. So I guess if I have a dark side, then I also have a sexy side.
Of course. I think one goes with the other. That's why this is called, The Dark Knights, right? The Dark Knight series. Amanda would like to know, do you have a favorite Western film or TV show?
I love Justified. Oh my God, I love Raylan Givens so much. So that's modern day. I love that one. I grew up watching Gunsmoke and Bonanza and, all of those type of shows. But my favorite Western is the one with just totally left me. John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara.
Oh, yes. But that was a movie.
Yeah, right? A movie. Yeah, that's my favorite Western movie.
I'll think of it, too.
And I also like Clint.
Oh, Clint Eastwood.
I also like Clint. Yes, I'm a huge Clint Eastwood fan. Loved High Plains Drifter, Outlaw Josie Wales, and I do refer to those movies, in my books, too, because I just love them.
Are you from South Dakota originally?
I am fourth generation, both sides of my family, so yes.
Wow.
Got my roots here pretty deep.
Yeah. You said your daughter Tessa is a cheerleader?
Yes, she's at college, so
wow.
That's why I thought maybe she was the one who...
You never know, because we only have first names, that little stinker. Where does she go to school? Oh, you don't have to say that, but does she go to school in South Dakota?
She does go in-state. She's our one kid that actually went to school in-state, so she's about 7 hours away. So we are officially empty nesters now, which is
7 hours away would take me 3 states away from where I live.
Right? I could drive 9 hours and I'm still in South Dakota. So.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, that's the big sky, though, right?
Yep.
Jake has a question. Jake says you're a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. What has been the most rewarding experience so far as a writer?
I think when I get letters from readers that something that I have written has really struck a chord with them and has, they say, changed their life somehow. And those type of things, I mean, you can never plan for them. I write entertainment and I love what I do. I'm not setting out to try to change the world. So even if one person tells me that, they read my book and it helped them through a really hard time, or they read my book and they've been married for a really long time and they would like to, have an intimate relationship with the person that they love, like they see in my books, I've heard that many, many times. And that's humbling. I mean, it's very humbling and it's very gratifying because I think a lot of people dismiss erotic romances as, drivel and it's just, mommy porn or whatever they want to call it. And I guess they don't realize the power that it does have for a lot of women.
And some people may forget what personal romance was like in the very beginning stages of a romance. And then for some reason or another, it could be children, it could be work, 2 jobs, that we forget the sense of touch and the scent of each other, and we grow apart. And so I understand totally what those readers are saying to you when they're referring to your characters, and that is a huge compliment. That is. So
it is very much so.
Do you write Sutton's character after someone you know, and if not, how did you come up with him?
Well, I didn't know that Sutton was such a Mr. Goody-Goody until I actually got into the story. I thought that maybe he was a bit of a player, and I was kind of trying to make him into a player, and it wasn't working, and I just thought, well, there's a reason that he's not a player, that this isn't working, is because he's not. He is, he's not one of the rodeo slut guys, so... Yeah, it was a little bit of a departure because, I write about guys who have a ton of sexual experience and, who are kind of the bad boys, and he is just a good guy.
Do you ever change characters? You ever change characters mid-plot? Not the character, but the characterization of the protagonist or the female lead.
sometimes things happen that really surprise me once you get into the meat of the story, where you thought you were going isn't where you end up, and you really have to take a hard look at that and say, okay, how come I ended up here? And it's either you took a false turn or you've got false characterization someplace that you've got to fix, and that's never fun. Initially, it's never fun, but a lot of times it always, it turns out in the end because that doesn't steer me wrong. It hasn't steered me wrong so far.
Speaking of characters, there's another question about Sutton. Angie wants to know, did you write Sutton's character after someone you know? And if not, how did you come up with him?
I think we just did that one.
Did I do? I'm sorry.
Did we just do that one?
I thought we did something like that. Yes, you know what? I think we did. It's my fault. I'm so sorry. Did you also want to pursue a career as an author? Did you always want to pursue a career as an author?
I sort of did, vaguely growing up, reading and writing and stuff, and so it kind of took a backseat. And when I went to school, I didn't actually finish college, but when I went to school, I went to school for an engineering degree. So industrial engineering, which basically takes what engineers hear and what real people hear and tries to make the two mix. And so I thought, on a communications level, that would be good. But I always wanted to write, and it just got to the point where I had to do it. I had to give it a try. And it took it took 5 years of me writing before I got a published book. So
5 years?
That's short.
That's short.
Short in the scheme of things for a lot of people.
I know that you talked about this in the beginning about what the books that are coming up in 2015 and 2016, but there is a fan that would like to know what you're currently working on. Are those the books that you're currently working on, or do you have other things you write? Do you have more than one project at a time going on? I guess that's what she's trying to ask.
I'm currently writing Unraveled, which is the third book in the Mastered series, and then immediately after that, I'm writing Caged, which is the fourth book in the Mastered series, and immediately after that, I'm writing Wrapped and Strapped, and immediately after that, I'm writing Stripped Down, which is the 1001 Dark Nights. So yeah, I'm pretty busy, and I just finished Schooled, which is a novella that'll be out in December in the Mastered series. So yeah, I'm pretty busy.
Laura asks a question that goes right into what you just answered. Some of your series have a lot of books in them. How do you keep it all straight? And how do you come up with fresh ideas to keep a series going?
Well, I have readers that if I get really stuck on something and I can't remember, I contact them and go, hey, do you remember the name of so-and-so's dog in book 5? And I text them or whatever, and that's always a big help to me. I have sort of a little series breakdown, but not a gigantic Bible. The one thing about the Rough Rider series is I never got style sheets like I do with NAL. So NAL will give me style sheets and it tells me all the characters and all the stuff, and it's a generalization, but it sometimes it's very hard for me to keep everything straight. And I knew that, I'd gotten to do everything with the Rough Rider series. I just wrote book 16 came out in June, and I knew 2 years before that book came out that I was going to end the series because I'd gotten to do everything with that series that I wanted to do, and I hadn't repeated myself as far as I was concerned, and my publisher kind of just let me, do what I wanted and write this big, long saga. And so, that was a good ending point for me. Do I think that the Blacktop Cowboys will go that long? I mean, I would hope so. It would be great if they did. But it is hard when you're mixing all of these series and you've got such a backlist. And then if I add in my mystery books and the Mastered series and all of that kind of stuff, you start to run out of character names.
Wow.
And
well,
occupations. It's like, I haven't had a rodeo clown yet. Maybe that's the next one I should do.
Oh, God. Or a mystery about cowgirl boots, and how they disappear, and every time they disappear, someone gets murdered. Well, right. That's for another day. That's another day.
And someone gets shot. That's what I would think.
And the clues are in the boots. Amanda did want to ask.
The glasses that are doing that, see?
Yeah, the glasses are doing it. You talked about the editors and the publishers sort of giving you the rundown of characters and I guess plots that you've used before. Amanda says, "Do you storyboard?" We've talked to other authors and there's everything from index cards to stickies on the wall, to keep a character straight, to keep the plot line straight. Does your room look like that? I know we're in a close, tight shot. If we backed up, what would that room look like?
Oh my God, that's why we're not in my office. Because it's a disaster. It's such a disaster. I keep pretty much everything on my computer. I have little post-its that I write stuff on, but I tend to lose them. So, I have, when I start a book, especially if you sell a book to New York, you have to have a synopsis. So I have a basic idea. But while things occur to me, while I'm writing something and I know that when I get to this portion of the book, I'm going to want to write this scene, I have a document in my computer that I just go to. And then, scenes that I'm having trouble with, I put in a different document. And, then when I get to close to the end, these are the scenes that I need to finish. And.
Did you teach yourself to do that? I mean, is this like a self-taught index of how I'm writing? Or did someone say to you, this is how you have to do this? And they gave you a template?
Nobody told me that's how you have to do it. There's a lot of people who do things completely differently. There's a lot of writers who have to write linearly. They start at the beginning and they cannot skip to the scene at the end of the book until they're there. I've done that before, but sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes you got a scene that's just really bugging the crap out of you that you just need to write while it's fresh. So everybody, there's as many different styles of getting a book finished as there are writers out there. So there's really no true way. I wish sometimes that, there's a couple of writers programs. There's Scrivener and there's Writeway, which I have Writeway. I don't have it installed on my computer because I'm always, at this point, I'm so far behind with deadlines that I don't have time to do the learning curve on how to do all that. But those are, great programs. If you're just starting out, it does everything for you, organizational wise.
I can't believe that we're in our 32nd minute, but I just want to ask you one more question before we say good evening to you. Savvy Bookworm asks, who is the one author that you would like to write with someday and why?
I would like to write with J.D. Robb.
Ah.
Because I absolutely think that her series, the In-Depth series, she's pretty much ruined me for romantic suspense for anybody else because she does it so well, so perfectly every single time. She's 30-some books into that series and every book just kills. I mean, they're so great. So yeah, I would love to write something with her because she's just, that series is a masterclass in how to write a killer series.
Well, if she's listening or watching, she's got the note. This has been such an enjoyable evening for me. I say that sincerely. I wasn't even looking at the questions because I was so enthralled with talking to you and listening to your answers. And I apologize again for asking that question twice. But
no, don't worry about it.
You are a most enjoyable person. It was a very informative evening, and I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the series and all of the new and wonderful books to come from you. I'm one of your fans, and I thank you very much for tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. This has really been fun.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us, and be sure to sign up at BookTrib and enter to win a mystery bag of Lorelei's favorite things. Until we meet again, good night.